Jessie from Belle by Jessie, and today we are going to make a quick and super useful new mom gift. It's this fabric necklace. Has a wooden ring, wooden beads inside the fabric. This is great to use with your little ones who want to play and fidget and chew on things in particular places where maybe you don't want to put them in the floor, you don't want to drop it. So this is for the mom to wear, baby to play with. It's a wonderful, handy thing. Used it with both of my kids, and I love giving them for gifts to new moms. We're going to make one today that has a wooden ring. It has 6 wooden beads inside the necklace, and it has a ribbon tie. The ribbon tie is nice because you can make the necklace as short or as long as works for you. So what you will need is about 1/4 yard of fabric. Lightweight fabric works best. If you're getting a print, a smaller print works best because only a little bit's going to show at a time. You're going to need a turner to turn your necklace right side out. You're going to need 1.25 yards of ribbon. You're going to need a wooden ring, about a 2 to 2.5 inch wooden ring, and you're going to need 6 beads. I like to start with these 1-inch wooden beads. You can do all 6 that size, or if you want to do a couple that are a smaller size at the top end of your necklace, that's fine too. You choose what works for you. So let's get started. With our fabric, we want to cut it into a strip all the way from selvage to selvage, so the whole width of the fabric, and you want it to be 4.5 to 5 inches wide. We don't need it any wider than that. If you get too wide, then your knots are going to get really, really thick. So 4.5 to 5 inches is just right. I've already got mine cut. I'm going to turn my fabric right sides together. And we're going to stitch all the way from selvage to make a tunnel here for our wooden beads to go inside. I'm going to sew at about 1/2 inch seam allowance. My background is in production pattern making. I sew more like a production worker than like a home sewer, so some of the things you'll see me do occasionally are a little bit different than maybe how you've done them at home. That's one of them. I like to sew at 1/2 inch seam allowance. If you want to sew at 5/8 inch seam allowance, works just the same. We've got a little bit of wiggle room in our tube we're making here, so you do not need to cut it any wider. I will point out quickly just one difference about my sewing machine. I work on an industrial sewing machine, and like you, I do have a lever back here for my presser foot, but I also have down below a knee lifter, so I can lift that without using my hands. If you're wondering what's happening, it's just that I have a different style of sewing machine. All right, so let's get started. We're going to back stitch at each end, and we're going to sew from selvage all the way to selvage. Get your loop turner. We're going to turn this right side out. If you've never used one of these before, you're just going to stick the whole tube piece of fabric all the way on that shaft, and it has a little hook at the end. If you can see that. You're going to hook it onto your fabric and close it. And I'm not ready to trim my selvage off yet, so I'm trying to get it hooked in there. All right, so it hooks. It's a little hook. Well, I knocked it off. Let's see if we can see that. So it's a little hook that hooks onto your fabric. All right, and a little trick I like to do with this, because it can come unhooked while it's in the middle of here, which is very frustrating, so I like to turn it upside down so that I'm pulling on. There. Let's do that again. My trick didn't work. So this is going to make a tiny little hole in the end of your fabric, and that's fine. It's going to end up covered up. All right, let me make sure I've got it hooked on there good. There we go. All right, and then you just pull the fabric all the way right side out. Now we want to find the center of it. I'm not going to iron this. There's no need. So I'm going to fold it in half, find the center, and I'm going to get my wooden ring. There we go. Now what we're going to do is loop this through our wooden ring, like so. And we're going to put those tail ends through the loop. That's all we have to do to attach the ring. On all the parts you do with this, as far as attaching the wooden parts to it, you're going to want to pull it as tight as you can. The fabric, no matter whether you have synthetic or cotton, over time it will loosen up. So you want to start with it as tight as you can. Alright, so I'm happy with that. I've got it as smooth as I like, as tight as I can get that fabric to get. So now we are going to go ahead and put one of our big beads inside each end of our tube. So we're going to put one bead inside each end. Push it all the way down. I like to work on both sides at the same time, just in case I get distracted, so don't put too much on one side and make it uneven. So push that bead all the way down, and now you're going to make a knot in your fabric. I don't do this any particular special way, but I will say again, you want to make it as tight as you possibly can. You're going to think that's not necessary, but it will loosen up over time. So there we go. The knots are going to make your fabric shorter and shorter and shorter. So this one's only getting 3 on each side. So let's put another one. There we go. We're going to add one more. You can do the exact same 1-inch size bead. I happen to have another size, so for variety I'm going to put one that's just a little bit smaller. So I've got my last bead is about 3/4 of an inch. I'm going to put that on each side and tie the knot again. So it's ready for the ribbon. You're going to get your piece of ribbon and cut it in half, and I'm going to show you a trick. We're going to match our ends together. We're going to fold it to the center. I'm going to pinch it so that I can see the center, and then I'm going to open it up and cut it at an angle. So I haven't wasted a single inch of ribbon. I've got my ends already cut at an angle, so they're not going to ravel so much. And then I've got my other ends straight. They're exactly the same length. This straight end is what we're going to sew into our necklace. So what I am going to do now is I've got quite a bit of selvage here that's got, you know, little needle holes, got the printing colors. I'm going to chop some of that off. And then I'm going to fold this inside, just to give myself a nice clean edge. I like to press my seam open flat, but it doesn't matter. So turn it in 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch, whatever works for your fingers. Alright, so I have it folded to the inside. I'm going to put my ribbon in here. So I'm going to pinch it with my fingers so my ribbon's in there. But now we don't want this big fat piece of fabric next to this thinner ribbon. My ribbon's about 5/8 of an inch. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you, and then I'm going to fiddle with it a little bit. We're going to fold it on either end, kind of make a little ribbon sandwich, and I'm going to top stitch this. Now the reason I'm going to fiddle with it is sometimes it gets poofy looking like that. It looks a little twisted. Every time you make this, it's going to be a little bit different, just depending on how your knot works out. I've made dozens and dozens, possibly hundreds of these, and my knots are never exactly the same. So at this point, I like to kind of put it in, see where my necklace end on this exact necklace, see where it sort of looks like it wants to fold? I like it to lay a little bit flatter here at the end. So you fiddle with yours, get it to lay how you like it, and then you're going to top stitch that ribbon down in there. So give me just a second. All right, I like that a little bit better. Still looks a little twisted, but not quite so poofy looking. So I've got my ribbon pinched in there. I've got my fabric folded over a little sandwich, and I'm going to top stitch as close to the edge as I can. I'm going to go back and forth over it 3 times to make sure it's stitched in there very securely. We don't want our new mom to have to worry about baby pulling on this necklace, so we want it really strong. So I'm going to stitch all the way to the end, pivot around, stitch across it again, and one more time. I'm going to do one more back stitch just to make sure, and then trim those threads. Same thing to the other side. That's it, it's finished. However, I suggest go ahead and tie it in a bow so that when you give it to your new mom, she can try it on. She can tie it differently when she's ready. But I'm going to go ahead and put a bow at the end so that she can try it on as soon as she receives it. There we go. I've had fun making this little DIY gift project with you. Please check out some of my other videos. You can also find my shop for those times when you're just too busy to DIY. You can find me here, there, and everywhere at Belle by Jessie. There's an extra E on the Belle, not on the Jessie. In the meantime, like and subscribe so you don't miss any more wonderful projects.
And also like and subscribe. Yeah, so like and subscribe.
Thanks, boys.